I walked through the door, awestruck by what I saw around me. I've been here before, stood in this room before, but it was all transformed. There before me was a set of stairs, and each step up struck me with a new emotion, but each step was more beautiful than the last. Upon reaching the top, I finally saw them. There they stood, five in number. I collapsed to my knees and lowered my head, and the third smiled and swiftly picked me up, lifting my head, whispering three words into my ear, returning me to grace. Then he returned to place. The second and the fifth spoke. Nice to finally meet you. What would you like to talk about? And I said, I ask of you with heavy heart and humble hand. Am I ready? And the fifth spoke to me and said, are any of us truly ready?
The program you are about to hear is fiction, science fiction. We make no guarantees, however, how long it will remain fiction, fiction, fiction.
Ascending salutations, Cognitox. Welcome back to another episode of Exofathom, where we dare to explore the fringes of thought. I'm Mike, and I'm stumbling through the intro. And as always, I'm joined with my two lovely co-hosts, Nick and Ayla. How y'all doing?
Hey, happy Friday. How are you?
I'm hanging in there like always.
Happy Friday. Yeah, I'm doing fine. I just noticed that not only are you wearing a Santa hat, but your little friend in the corner is also wearing a Santa hat. So that's pretty cool.
We're matching.
Yeah. And you got your lights up. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna get way more festive. I have like these like little houses that with like lights in them. I'm gonna get from my nana. I'm gonna set them up all over the house. It's gonna be a little winter village up in here.
I thought you were going to suggest that, like, as we record and get closer to Christmas, that, you know, the decorations would get closer and closer to the screen until, like, it's just a tree branch.
Oh, even like I get more and more fake Christmas trees just behind me, and this builds all the way up until I'm just sitting in a forest.
Yeah. We could do like some stop motion animation, you know, like do screen captures every time and just like do.
That'd be pretty good. That would be pretty good. Yeah, so you're doing well, Ayla?
Yes, I am dealing with some interesting allergies. I will try my best not to sneeze directly into the mic or sound very nasally, which I might already be. I can't really tell. My ears are stuffed up too. So fun.
You sound fun. I'm dealing with like some weird sinus issues too.
Yeah, it's weird. I think, I mean, not to get into it on the live show, but yeah, I've been better. I think it's the weather change, honestly. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. But cool. Before we jump into the next show, real quick, though, it is Veterans Day. So I would just like to raise a beer up to all those who have served, who are serving, and who will serve. We appreciate you. Cheers.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to my brother Broski, Marine. Pretty cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tonight I wanted to talk about archangels. And I don't know how, like, I have a lot of research. I got like a lot of structure here. But I don't think I want to go down that road because that just ends up with me like talking for a long time with no interaction. It sucks. So I guess my first question is, what do you know about archangels or angels in general? Do you believe in them? Do you like them?
Ayla?
Yeah, I'll go first. It's pretty short. No, a whole lot of nothing. That's what I got. Yeah, a whole lot of nothing for angels. I think I saw some tarot cards with them on it, you know, which seems like a weird thing because I thought tarot was like bad in circles that recognize angels, but then they are there, and I saw Constantine. No, he's not an angel. What's that movie with the guy who played Chaucer in A Knight's Tale? It's kind of a tall, lanky
Lejeune?
British fellow. Yeah, he was in a horror movie where he plays a fallen angel, but I don't remember the name of that movie.
I think there's like Legion and
That's it.
I think it's Legion.
It was Legion. Yeah. So yeah, that's the extent of my knowledge of angels is movies, specifically horror movies, and a tarot deck that I saw once.
And obviously Michael, the movie with John Travolta.
Oh yes, and Dogma, right? Those are angels. Wait, is there a difference between an angel and an archangel? Is that like angel prime?
I assume we're
going to
surmise that in this episode.
Yeah, that is a brilliant question. Yeah, archangels come from an old Greek word, but I believe it means like the angels that manage heaven, to put in like colloquial terms. So it's the ones that sit above the angels. They're
bureaucratic angels.
The best. Yeah, they're like personal agents of God. There's like stories
assassins.
about. There's stories about when Adam was first made, and so like I'm going to range across 3 main religions across Judaism, both like I guess all over the times of the Hebronic, like during like old Hebrew times, even like before like modern day Torah stuff. We go to Christianity a bit and Islam. I'm just going to kind of mix all the Abrahamic religions together, because I figure if I'm going to make one of them mad, I can make all of them mad all at the same time. But when Adam was being made, all the angels had a problem with it. They weren't big fans of humans. So God calls them up, and the archangels bring all their angel armies, and they ask God, like, why are you doing this? Why are you making humans? Pretty much. And God just kills all the angels and keeps the archangels around. Just
suckers.
Smites them, burns them away, and just keeps them
No.
around. Except for one, I believe that's Raphael. But,
Wait. I'm so sorry. So you're saying that there were all these angels and archangels, and then God makes the person, and then he gets rid of the angels, but keeps the archangels.
Yes.
Okay. That's weird. Because we still have angel, do the angels come back in some form?
They're a new generation of angels, sure.
Okay. Just wanted to ask that.
So yeah, you could kind of think of them as like the archangels as generals or leaders of their own different sets of angels, and they each too have their own responsibility. And that seems to be a little bit more uniform across all of the Abrahamic religions, which is interesting. But that seems to be the difference, is that these archangels are special because they can manage angels, and then also are personal agents of God. And they don't exactly fit the choirs, because you have a different way of organizing angels as well. But someone like Uriel is often depicted as a cherubim, I believe, or a seraph, and those are 2 different choirs of angels. So there's all these conflicting reports about exactly how the archangels are, how they look, but there's a lot of similarities as well. Fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and it's just interesting to have that context. And Nick, before this show, did you have much knowledge of archangels?
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. I don't know. I probably not as much as somebody who's well studied in religious script, but a decent enough knowledge. I had a book and I really wish that I hadn't lost it to time. But it was a book of all of the angels. So all of the angels, both in heaven and in hell, and sort of the ranking of the angels and all of that stuff. So I learned a little bit about cherubim and seraphim, and the concept of arch, meaning of the highest order, where you get the 5 archangels from. But I mean, deep lore, I know, Michael as the slayer of Satan, and Gabriel as the sort of herald, but not much beyond that. I do know that there's a story in the Bible about, I think, Jacob or Isaac that wrestles an angel.
Yeah, over the firstborn title, because the firstborn is being pulled back and he struggles with an angel. There's actually some disagreement on who that angel is because it's unnamed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting is in like real early like before the Jews were exiled out of Babylon, they had their religious texts and none of the angels were named, including the archangels. But as they are exiled out, the names start to come out of there as far as the whole etymology goes. And it's the most agreed upon theory right now about it. And as they get their names, they start to attribute, they start to get different attributes as well, which is kind of cool. It's like this long storytelling thing of these characters that get built up. And they end up becoming extremely important. In the Bible, there's only Michael and Gabriel that are named. And then there's little hints and interpretations that Raphael is also in there kind of working behind the scenes. But it's never exactly clear in the Bible. So in some, if you just follow that, there's only 3 venerated. I think you could pray to Uriel now. But there's only 3 that were venerated according to Catholicism. In Anglicanism, there's the 4th, and then Judaism, there's like I think 5 or 9. In some different sects of Abrahamic religion, goes up to like 9 archangels. So it's like all over the place. The 5 that I kind of focused on were Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, Uriel, and Metatron. Metatron is considered an archangel within older like Jewish texts, arising most interestingly as like the first human to ascend and to become an angel, which is crazy to think about too, and that goes through like the whole book of Enoch. So yeah, that's I guess kind of like the overview of what we're going to dive into. I guess where do you want to start? Do you want to start on a particular one?
Which one did you have the most fun in researching?
Oh, they're all pretty fun.
Oh well, then I can't help you. Do them all at once.
Well, like this
all
whole
at once.
all of them.
All of them at once.
Where it started was like an interest in the Book of Enoch, where pre-flood times you have the set of angels called the Watchers, and they're supposed to watch everything that happens on Earth, but they find humans really beautiful. And one day, I think it's I have the name in here somewhere. But one of the angels thinks it's a great idea to go down and wed and sleep with the humans, and pick up human wives. And he convinces a whole batch of angels to do it. So they go down there, they do that. They start picking up wives. They end up having children called the Nephilim, which are half angel, half human kind of monsters. They become like cannibalistic, warlike, start killing and eating people, killing and eating each other. Complete chaos. So all the humans are crying, and they end up coming together. Like the archangels hear the prayers of the humans and go plead to God to do something about this. Which in current time, or as the Bible went on, as it was being written, there was certain times in history where it was pretty frowned upon to pray to any angel. They saw it as like praising a false idol, praising a false god or a lesser god. If you get into like some real crazy real crazy agnostic texts. But anyway, so the angels feel bad. God tells them pretty much we're going to wipe out the Nephilim, and gives the archangels each, or gives 4 angels each a certain task. One is, I believe, one is supposed to kill the Nephilim. I believe that's Gabriel, which is interesting because he's more of a messenger type angel, very similar to like to Mercury. and he actually gets them just to kill each other. Larry doesn't get his hands dirty at all. It's kind of cool. And Michael, I believe, is supposed to kill Samzel, the leader. Uriel takes out Azazel. Uriel tells warns Moses about the flood and tells him to go hide himself. Let's see. Yeah, Gabriel is responsible for killing the Nephilim.
Can I ask a question about the Nephilim?
Sure.
Or I guess another question. I hate when I ask. Like, I'm like, can I ask a question? But it's already a question. But no, but it's like kind of a side thing. But Nephilim is a familiar word. Was that used for like a movie or something like that? Like I don't know why, but I feel like in the Dark Crystal they called the like little, like the nice little Muppets Nephilim. Is that right? Is that wrong?
I've never seen the Dark Crystal, but that sounds wrong because the Nephilim are giants.
Okay. I'm just thinking about the I don't know if that word's popped up in like modern culture and stuff.
I'm sure somewhere. Yeah, the biggest. I guess you could think of them as sort of half breeds, right? So they're abominations before God because they were the product of angels and humans consorting with each other. And actually, one of the reasons that the flood begins is because there were too many of them on the earth.
Yep. God was pretty much hitting the reset button.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we're watching a really interesting documentary.
Mike says Skeksis in the Dark Crystal.
Oh yeah, those are the bad ones. Nephilim. It sounds familiar to me in a non-archangel way, and I can't put my finger on why. I mean, I can see that there's like Nephilim in Diablo lore or some video game.
Lots of stuff.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's a game called El Shaddai, Rise of Metatron, which is supposed to be based on the Book of Enoch, so maybe that's where it was. I remember playing it in university, but I don't remember if the word Nephilim showed up or not.
Interesting.
Yeah, so Raphael is actually sent to go bind Azazel and kill Azazel. Send him into that pit of fire, or throws him into a valley. And then Uriel, sent to those other visions. Okay. Yeah, I believe he takes out the other leader. And then acts as a guide to Enoch. Like shows him like Tartarus, shows him hell, shows what happens to all the angels, which is kind of nuts. And then lastly, Metatron is actually Enoch, who's like this scribe pretty much, and is considered so holy that God takes him. I believe is the great grandfather of Noah. Or something like that. But one of them tells Noah to go hide themselves. It's actually pretty interesting, and the whole flood thing happens. But each one has a different responsibility. And then after all the Watchers are dispatched, they actually the four end up watching over different parts. They end up doing the job of the Watchers as well. If I remember correctly, Michael is supposed to watch over the best people in chaos. One watches over the spirits, like the light spirits. One watches over the earth, and then one watches Uriel watches over Tartarus, watches over hell. And that's where kind of like the source of where this research started, where my interest in this stuff started. And then it became a never-ending rabbit hole. And it's kind of interesting as you continue the research, you get closer and closer to like Greek texts. And then you find out that, or you don't find out, but you kind of get around to the idea that like there is some ties to some of these Greek gods, which is kind of interesting to see.
Yeah. I wonder, did you get, I mean, like the ties with numerology and stuff too, right? Because I could see the significance of the 5 being the, number of the archangels. Of course, that differs between traditions, but you also have the 5 points on a star. And then even in modern sort of parlance, we have the 5 eyes, right? Which is the union of all the Western nations and their intelligence gathering. So the number 5 seems to be a pretty significant number.
Yeah. Before that, you end up getting to like the number 4, so the cardinal directions.
Mm-hmm.
So each angel ends up also having a certain responsibility over those directions. But yeah, no, you can tie those numbers become important, where they really do, as far as the different kinds of responsibilities and who watches over what. It's kind of cool. And probably can be a little maddening as well.
Yeah, I would imagine, since it's the sources are going to be from Hebrew text, those are all associated with numbers as well, and also musical notes. So if you have, Gabriel, Mikael, all of those are Hebrew names, and they're associated with music as well. So I would wonder what they sound like.
I'm pretty sure they would break your ear.
Probably.
I believe, let's see, who plays music. There is an angel that plays music so well. Oh, yeah, Raphael. So Raphael ends up playing music so well that in the heavens, whenever he plays music, he can actually get angels to jump in with him. And even though Gabriel is the one who holds the trumpet, it's more meant as a sign of resurrection and not so much like the coming of revelation. And that can also differ in between the texts. The one who plays the trumpet in Islam, I believe, is Israel, which I believe links back to Raphael. So much text.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, then you get into sort of like the etymology of the word El being the Hebrew name for God.
What I like is that you have Metatron. Metatron kind of breaks that whole mold.
Mm-hmm.
That ends up being the eunuch, the scribe, and he ends up being like his name has so many different controversies as far as where it comes from, that there's like a million different meanings for it. But one of the more interesting ones is the one who works like behind God, behind the throne. So there's so many etymologies. One who serves behind the throne, keeper of the watch, the guard, the protector. One who occupies the throne next to the throne of glory, co-occupant of the divine throne. So even like in there's the idea that like God is almost prepping. Yeah, the other word I don't want to use is kind of prepping Metatron to take the throne. But then when you have like a rabbi that shows up there and freaks out because he's like, is there like 2 gods here? Is there 2 acting in heaven? What's happening here? And God's like, no, calm down. Because the rabbi sees Metatron sitting next to God, which is sitting's not allowed in heaven if you're an angel. And God just straight up like lashes with like 60 fiery rods, lashes Metatron just to show that he's an angel and not a god.
Yeah.
But this is the only one though that breaks that of God kind of naming structure, but still 6th the highest. So Metatron's even more powerful than Michael.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, the controversy surrounding Metatron probably has to deal with just that, what you said, because God in the Old Testament is very, he takes no prisoners. He's not the type to suffer anybody or any insolence. And so maybe having that, because almost to me, it feels a little bit like there was gnosis or Gnosticism interjected into that, maybe the Hebrew myth, maybe through Ethiopia or something like that, or the mystery schools, because you have that concept of becoming God, right? Like Metatron is sort of ascended to that higher place as a mundane human, almost so close to basically the position of God that you could argue that he would be able to sit in God's throne.
Yeah, he's known as Lesser Awa, I believe, or Yahweh. It was the blue cat people thing. Lesser Yahweh. But yeah, no, he's like 6 right next to him. That's because he's the scribe. He's the one that like writes everything down that Israel does, or the Israelites do, which is probably the most bureaucratic angel that you could possibly have.
Well, I'm not going to go any further on that one. Yeah, the bureaucracy of angels too, right? You know, because you have the ranking as the angels, and really all the angels serve to do is orbit God, which is kind of interesting. They orbit and sing, and that is their, I mean, not the archangels particularly, but all lower castes. Their position is to orbit God and orbit the throne of God and sing.
Yeah, but it seems like there is a connection. If you can, like, depending on your faith, or not faith, that's wrong. Depending on your religion and tradition, you can talk to these archangels and ask for their intercession. So then that like gets me to the question of one is the goal of religion faith in order to like be able to reach out to these beings, because let's assume that they exist and they're like fifth dimensional beings. Let's jump back into our little sandbox. Is that the purpose of actually faith? And do you need religion to have faith in order to believe in these higher beings?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe because of the asceticism religion demands, there might have to be some sort of sacrificial transaction going on here. Maybe you don't have the favor of the archangels unless you are what you might consider a true believer, and the cost is that belief. Because I think, you know, like there is a give and take there, and it would seem to me that if this is a quasi magical system, there is always a cost involved, and that might be best paid in asceticism, in orthodoxy, in a sort of very structured way of acting in the world might grant you a little more access to communication with those types of entities.
What do you think, Ayla? Do you think you have to live a pretty like rigid aesthetic lifestyle in order to reach out into the fifth dimension to the lighter beings? Because it seems like I always hear in folklore like tales of the evil beings, but not so much how to contact and how to see if the beings of light are around.
That's interesting. So sort of like you have, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I'll pour some wine. I got a new wine glass.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Is it 20 feet tall?
It does look 20 feet tall.
Keep going for it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I kind of feel like if angels exist, then they would exist regardless of whether or not we believe in them. But I could see how a certain level of faith may be required to access that kind of stuff, while at the same time, it seems kind of cruel to demand that one human sift through the menu of options, select the right one, and then follow it appropriately in order to get access to the thing. So that seems a little cruel. And I don't know. So I don't know. I mean,
Could there
I could
be?
see, but I also feel like if the intention is to be like a benevolent figure, why make it so difficult and convoluted?
I don't know if it necessarily has to be difficult, but there has to be a cost, right? Like nothing is free. I mean,
Well, yeah, but I mean, like for a human, because well, like if you are following certain rules to get something, you need to choose the right set of rules. And I'm just thinking that there's such a menu of options out there that although there could be, characters within those circles that exist as well too. So I don't know. Is my question. Is my answer. I don't know is my answer.
I think it's. I don't think. I think faith is the real uh, gold at the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, where any religion provides the set of rules. So I don't think it's necessarily picking the right set of rules. I think it provides like a rails system, like a pretty easy way. You have like the instructions for life, it's all preset. They give you the rules of how to live, and like this is it. And then if you live that way, then you can obtain this thing called faith that will allow you to um, transcend, either at death or in life. Because we're getting to how archangels actually do kind of visit Earth. They do, or they can visit Earth. They can listen to your prayers. It might be around you right now. There might be one in this room around me. Just like demons can come there. But I don't necessarily think you have to pick a set of rules in order to get there. Or you can like pick and choose different sets of rules. Now, this would be complete heresy to any sort of orthodoxy. But I think faith is the end goal of religion, not the other way around, where religion is the end goal of faith. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think that faith has to be exclusive to religious idea in the least bit.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever drank it out of, and I love it.
It's like a 2-bottle glass there.
3-bottle glass. 3's the magic number.
There you go. No, I don't necessarily think you have to have a religious structure in order to be qualified for the faith conversation. I just think that a religion tends to offer, like you said, a rubric that affirms the mindsets that has the easiest time accessing faith. And so it might be harder for somebody who doesn't have the religious rubric to access faith, because then you have to question to yourself what faith is. What is it? Is it, and where is it based out of? And like it's very hard to divorce it from some sort of higher thing out of your control.
Yeah, some sort of like so Nietzsche would call this like the true world, right? And getting back to like Plato and the forms, right? Like if we're all stuck in the cave looking at shadows on the wall, that's sort of the false world, like this world is, right? And then if you move out of that cave, then you would see the true world, and that would be the transcendence notion, right? Mm-hmm. So the thing is, if you throw away all the forms, if like religion is the way out of the cave, can you still get out of the cave? And if you use the resource of faith, I don't know, faith being us crawling around on the floor in this metaphor. I think this is starting to fall apart. But faith being us crawling around on the floor and looking for the way into the true world, then you don't, like, maybe religion is the way to crawl. Like that's where it kind of gets, I guess, a little strange. But yeah, no, that the thing that you're talking about, what religion provides, is the true world. And if we're talking about fifth dimensional beings, archangels, there are things that we can't see or can't perceive, which we know there is, like IR and UV. You might be right where it's easier to communicate with these beings through religion, but that doesn't mean you still can't communicate with them without it. I think it runs on that faith thing, that belief.
I think.
Yeah. If we're gonna, sorry, Ahil, go ahead.
You can go. It's okay.
Oh no, I sorry. There's a bit of a lag.
A lag. No, I was just gonna say to my earlier comment, what I was trying to get at, because you used the word forms. I mean, I don't know if I'm using it in a similar or different way, but I think what I was trying to express before was that there is a menu of different ways that a human can express their faith through different religious systems. Like there's just a bunch of them. And archangels are present in some of them. So I guess what I was trying to say is that, like, if you're a human, there's like option B and option C, or there's group A, group B. Group A has a religious system that has the archangels included in them, and group B has a religious system with zip, none archangels. And so my question is that, are archangels maybe like a placeholder for something accessible from other religious systems? Like, right, because if group B is having faith till the cows come home, but there's no archangels in their system, then they can't access them. But if archangels are like a placeholder, and we're talking about like faith manifesting some sort of like benevolent entity or something like that we call archangel here but not there, then does that kind of like deepen the understanding of what an archangel could be in our like mass consciousness?
Yes.
Cool.
No, like the form, right? You have equivalent beings of light or benevolent or like a god, you can even say. So, like how I was looking at Gabriel, who's this messenger, holy messenger, known for telling, was it Sarah, that John the Baptist is going to be born, and Mary that Jesus is going to be born, known as the man in linen, takes different disguises. You're getting very close to like a Greek god, it's like Hermes or Mercury, a messenger type god, right? So if we have in one religion this notion of Gabriel, and in the other religion this notion of Hermes, you can say that they're kind of equivalents.
The Persian equivalent would be Sarush. Sarush is does the same thing as Hermes and Gabriel.
Yes.
But
So go for it.
Oh no, he's just he's a part of the sort of the angel class in Persian mythology, and he did the same things that Gabriel did. He was a herald for God and sort of aided in the success of humanity over Satan.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like we have different, because we humans love to classify things. We have these different classification systems that are broken up by languages. We end up still creating the same benevolent being, but like, to sound like a first year philosophy student, but each religion is its own cave, and we're all seeing the form in the true world of this benevolent thing, but it's all still the same benevolent thing. And the archangels is just one way to express this. You can also look at this with Michael, right? Where Michael is the one who slayed the serpent, slayed the dragon, slayed Satan. There is a story in Greek mythology about Apollo, who does the same thing, who slays a giant python, right? And this is where it could get a little strange, or get a little wobbly, because it's not exactly the devil or Satan. There's not a big rebellion happening, but the stories are similar enough to where you can look at it and wonder if there was any sort of draw on the same iconography or same symbolism, where you have this giant serpent, which then caused him to question a whole psychological thing about the Apollonian in you and then the Dionysian in you. All right, if we kind of update that to Christian terms, where Apollo is sort of the studious one, the day, the light, all of that stuff, and Dionysus is the one that likes to party, go out and act all crazy at all hours of the night. You can say that they're going on a bridge here, that in some people that there is a Michael and Luciferian. Michaelarian, because there's like saint days and feast days. There's a thing called Michaelmas. I'm gonna say Michaelarian and Luciferian dynamic within the conscience. That you would be able to create a structure like that in Christian terms, in archangel or in Abrahamic terms, the same way that they've done it that Nietzsche did it in Greek terms. Which again gets back to your point, Ayla, that I don't think it's a system that we have to choose. I think it's all sort of the same thing. We're just picking different words for it. But there would be an equivalent for an archangel that there would be in any other sort of mythology or religion or whatever words you want to use.
Yeah, which then just gets at the question of like, we're all in these different caves. What is it? I'm just curious, like if in some of your readings there's been any cool like suggestions about what could be going on there, because I know that there's a lot of attention from like neuropsychology and neuroscience about sort of like attention, focus, and sort of the ways that our physiology can both override and take over our understandings about reality and our surrounding world. So I just wonder about the concept of faith and how there's like two different maybe ways to slice it. There's faith where you're sort of like expressing devotion through an ascribed set of steps. So I'm thinking about like that inch foot gem poem that we did years ago, where it was like the only way to meditate is this way, and if you do it this exact way, this is how you will attain the jewel. And we had a good conversation because it was like, well, you don't have to do it just that way. Like every way is a little bit different. And so there's that version of faith. And then I wonder if the other version of faith gets more into like, not so much the power of belief, but the power of the human mind to, I don't know, like pivot its reality around certain things. Does this any of this make sense? Am I just kind of like...
Well, pivoting reality sounds like the brain protecting itself from traumatic experiences, right? Like repression, suppression, kind of creating new realities for itself to be in the moment.
Yeah,
right?
and
No, I was just gonna say the former sounds like how things get lost in translation, and to use like a Tao Te Ching, there, if you could describe the way, you don't have the words to describe it. There is a way, but it's indescribable and always end up, if it works, and always become the way sort of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like being cool. There's no manual on how to be cool. If you ask whether or not you're cool, you're not cool. But if you're cool, you're just cool. I'm getting
Have you
like
seen
cool
Happy
vibes
Days?
from this conversation.
Happy Days is
Howie, I
the
didn't...
Bible of being cool. Fonzie, that's the cool Bible right there.
Rad.
But yeah, but you were gonna say something about the latter thing that we were talking about.
Oh yeah. So kind of putting back into these. So the new Group A, Group B. Group A has a very regimented, kind of like Apollo kind of style approach. And I guess you could say the opposite would be like that Dionysus sort of perspective. But regardless, let's say you're in the camp where there isn't the like asceticism that is tethered to the faith. Let's say it's something more, I don't know, like consciousness based or attention based. I don't like, just like focusing. I'm kind of losing it. I think what I'm trying to get at is whether or not there's any interesting theories about what these forms could be. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to ask.
This gets back to like the false world, true world thing. So, and like nihilism as a whole. Basically, the death of God and religion, we had to find a new religion. And you kind of see that now that people kind of pick their own religion. For example, if you disagree with the science, you're ostracized from am I just going to get us taken down from YouTube real quick?
No, you didn't say anything in particular. You're fine.
So if you
Science
disagree with something, something, then you have real world consequences that are equivalent to religious consequences. Right? There were some like a Martin Luther who wanted Reformation with the church. You lose your job. You have to, in some cases you get attacked physically. All of these social consequences happen. That's a religion. Same thing with something like transhumanism as well. Politics is a big religion nowadays. Everybody has their faith camp and want to start a crusade on the other faith camp for some unknown reason. Where like now Twitter is the battleground or something, or is the holy battleground, or is this control of Twitter is like Jerusalem? But yeah, basically, like all these false worlds that we have is still trying to pull you into this thing called faith. And where we had it in the proper place in something like gods and something that we can't see for thousands of years, I think we've lost that. So I think we had the answer, but we threw the answer away in maybe in due to the Dark Ages, letting it kind of get a little bit too rampant, become its own state, instead of using rational thoughts. But now I think that's what it is. It's like all those forms are going to find out is you kind of need this thing called faith to be in its proper place. And it tends to be with some form of religion, no matter what it is.
Yeah. And I think we do love our overcorrections. So, yeah, it would make sense that after the sort of excesses of the conservative religious paradigm, that we would swing violently against everything that stands for. But interestingly enough, we're talking about these two dualities, right? This Apolloisianism or Dionysianism. And it reminds me of Remus and Romulus, the founders of Rome. You have Gemini, the twins. You have this like sort of duality, opposites, the two pillars, the two towers. And so, yeah, I think that's, these are just sort of archetypical things, like you said, they run down the heart of each of us. But it's interesting to me because I think that eventually the sort of like hedonism or these the rejection of the aesthetic becomes, or aesthetic, ascetic, sorry, the rejection of that becomes its own asceticism in a ironic way, right?
Becomes its own with the reject. Yeah. And just likewise, the opposite is true. The rejection of hedonism becomes its own hedonism.
Yeah. It becomes a belligerence. Yeah, for sure.
And I think you getting at is like we see it as a duality, and this is what I enjoyed so much about sort of like Aztec lore, was that we eventually have to come, and it's so hard in the Western world to get this because we're so like duality based, like good and evil, that because we're human beings that the two are actually one. It's not like good space and space evil. It's good dash and dash evil as one single word.
Yeah.
And that's why where the archangels sort of represent the light in us that we always strive to, we neglect the fallen angels. Because in the book of Enoch, Azazel teaches us how to wage war and teaches how to make weapons of war. That's one of the sins that he does. I mean, we wouldn't have modern day capitalism without some war. Like neoliberal economics runs on the thing for the most part.
Well, and I think also one of the fatal flaws that's sort of baked into that mythology is that any sort of knowledge was also a sort of heresy, and that became, I think that was a big mistake, because you have idea that, not just Azazel, but most of the fallen angels gave us, I mean, according to all the myths, gave us math, gave us science, taught us how to raise livestock. So yeah, I think I think there was a mistake made in the rigid asceticism that neglected the contribution of sort of the Dionysian paradigm, so much to the fact that it almost rejects it almost teaches you to not see knowledge, because that could in turn become a sort of heresy.
Yeah. And not to seek out, knowledge as a whole. And like my favorite irony about Catholicism is that the original sin, you bit the fruit off of the tree of knowledge and all of that, but then you have Catholic school. So you set up an educational system to teach faith when the education was the knowledge was the thing that got us in trouble in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
So instead of leaving people to develop their own faith in their own time, you have this whole systematic thing. I think it's one of my favorite ironies. But then we wouldn't have like universities, because universities are born out of like the monastic system.
Mm-hmm.
That's asceticism. The only difference is you're doing it for knowledge.
Yeah, we're clumsy, confusing creatures full of paradoxes and contradiction. But that goes very back to that dualism that we're talking about. It's like, yeah, of course we are.
That's I think the beauty of being human. I think that's the thing that God loves about us most, is that whereas God is not a contradiction, cannot be.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't like, wouldn't it be beautiful if I could be a contradiction, if there was something like that out there? So here's this thing called free will. You know, that fruit I told you not to eat from? I have the power to remove it, but I'm just going to leave it there. Just see if you do anything about it. And like in Paradise Lost, God knows exactly what Satan is doing by tempting Eve, but he just lets it happen.
Yeah.
Because he wants to, like, it's those series of tests and trials and stuff like that, but it's the fact that we have the capability to do it, I think, is the ultimate beauty.
Yeah, I think it's also imperative for us to have that opportunity, because the latter, or the opposite, would be a existential crisis. I don't know if we could handle the sort of determinism that so many people want to push these days.
I don't think it could either.
I just think that would just, I mean, it could wreck society, but potentially it could wreck society. So yeah, I think it's imperative that the concept of free will is baked into the cake, into these stories, because we have to, again, it's like, even if it doesn't exist, we have to believe that it does, and we have to operate as though it does, because the other option is a very scary world.
Yeah, you end up getting people becoming solely in that one tract, right? You're either down in that aestheticism, that's all you are, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Or you're only heathen and a Dionysian and a crazy party, and that's it. There's no gray area in between the two. And then what's eventually going to happen is, because one's going to want to wage war on the other, eventually the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah,
you have to be able to cross over those lines here and there, and be able to at least have open dialogue with people on the other side and yourself, right? So there's a thing about Archangel Michael going down to hell, talks to Satan, and disputes over the body of Moses, and Satan wants the body of Moses, and the famous line, "The Lord rebukes thee." This is a translation that is like in the 1900s, I believe. There's a version of the Bible that was around like 1899 that's used, where the line is actually, "The Lord commands thee." which is much different than the Lord rebukes thee, which even implies that like if Satan is a part of God's plan, that's why the devil was allowed to fall and all of Lucifer was allowed to fall and all of that stuff. Then that whole thing of free will, even if it's not real, as you said, we have to be allowed to operate as it is, because that still like that whatever you describe as your devil, as evil, still serves a purpose in God's wider plan, and the ability to have. Even I think in Paradise Lost, Satan goes up to heaven, hides himself as a cherubim. The ability to cross and disguise yourself across multiple realms becomes important for the sake of empathy as a human being. Right? How can you learn about your fellow human if you don't put yourself in their shoes? Yeah. Archangels. Crazy. Ayla, you got any thoughts over there?
Yeah. I mean,
A drink out of my mega pint of wine. This thing is glorious. Tell it.
Yeah, I think the concept of that sort of deterministic universe, I think that determinism can really only be confirmed at God's level. And I think that that's maybe why we have such a, or more modernly, we have such a sort of obsession with trying to prove that we're living in this deterministic universe. Because it would seem to me that the only way that you could confirm that is if you were zoomed out of the universe enough to see it in its entirety. And that to me seems like only a distance that sort of God could oversee. I don't know if we as humans will ever be able to zoom out of the universe and see it as a whole piece.
Imagine the amount of information you would have to be able to take in to see that and process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're fascinated by our own satellites, but our own satellites only see at one angle. That's such a tiny little sliver of the Earth, right? Imagine if you saw all the Earth all the time
at every angle.
Yeah. So it's something that maybe only God can see. But the determinism is comforting to humans, right? Rex, we don't like to be thrown into the chaos, right? Which is why when we pray to God, we pray to Archangel Michael. Hopefully, if you're a reader of the Book of Enoch and believe that he watches over the best people in chaos, and are simultaneously a Catholic, I think that doesn't make sense. But anyways, you find your thing to cling on to in the moment of crisis, right? Or in the moment of healing. Like, say you pray to God, you pray to Raphael, who the Book of Tobit's interesting if you ever give it a read. The beginning hook of it is that there's a bird that poops in this guy's eye, and then that leads to an angel helping out somebody.
It's a nice angel.
Kill somebody with the fish in a gallbladder and excises a demon out of a woman. Oh yeah, the woman.
That's nice.
She can't. She every time she marries somebody and tries to like bet them, the demon wants her so bad the demon steps in and kills the guy. It's a wild book.
It's a problem. Yeah, demons were super horny for women back in the day.
Those were like, the Watchers and all that lust, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of those deadly sins. But what was I going with this? Yeah, if you're able to see all of that, I think it would be so overwhelming.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk about. Well, I mean, I'm thinking in particular of like Sam Harris, right? Sam Harris would argue that we live in sort of this deterministic universe, and given enough variables, we'll be able to prove that someday. But it kind of reminds me of us like going back to the Newtonian model of the universe, where everything is this like really articulate, or that really elaborate Swiss watch, that works on a very steadfast and sure metric, and I just don't understand how you could parse that out as a sort of as in this sort of time where we know that that variables and projections and stuff and models tend to always miss that factoring of chaos. You know, like it just seems very, very spiritual to me to claim that the universe is deterministic. It's almost like we're going back to the church when we say that.
Yeah, he's an atheist though, right? Like he doesn't believe in God, but he is making a God-based argument. Right? Like the whole world's mechanical and all of that. That's great. Then your God is that equation. Your God is that mechanical equation that you're figuring out. And it doesn't like human error. If the brain was so simple to understand it, we'd be so simple that we couldn't. You kind of that's like the micro level of biology. The macro is this equation that you're talking about. And even if we could figure out all the mechanical parts of it, why would you want to? Even in computer science, you learn pretty early on about asymptotic behavior functions. Given a function going into infinity, how is it going to behave? Does it look like this? Does it look like that? Does it have a bunch of curves in it? What's happening here? And you figure out each variable, and you make an estimate, but you still collapse variables upon themselves, things that actually don't matter for the overall equation. So you still allow room for chaos. And to completely remove chaos from your equation or even parameterize it is a fool's errand in my thought. But yeah, you're right. It's still a spiritually based argument.
Yeah,
it
definitely feels that way.
Your God has shifted again. Different caves, right? You have the true world out there that runs, but you have in cave A, mathematics is my God. I'll be able to figure it out, science, all of that. I'll be able to get it all done, or we will as a species. Great. And then you have cave B, where it's like, no, God does all this stuff for us. But the true world is still that world you're living around. And then what would that help you? How would that help you at all? And what, you can tell me that the planet's going to go from there to there over X amount of time? Yeah. Fantastic. Great.
Right. Yeah.
Happy for you.
Right. Yeah, pending no asteroid hit it between that time. You know what I mean?
Or even if you're like, oh nope, an asteroid is going to hit it there. You're like, all right, come on everybody, let's go watch the asteroid hit the planet for fun.
Right.
Or like, oh no, we have to defend ourselves from an asteroid hitting our planet. But we've figured out enough variables. You have to figure out the asteroid, I don't know, 1 trillion light years away. Is that really all that necessary?
Right. I mean, and then we just get into arbitrary lengths of time and space, and that to me nullifies all of the arguments. So my limit is 1 light year. Once you're past 1 light year, you're effectively talking about nothing.
I thought you're gonna be like, you're effectively intellectually masturbating.
Oh well, I mean that kind of too, because then everything is just a model, right? It's like you're just making a model of what you think is going on out there, but can you know for sure? No. You know.
Yeah. And even like if you took this deterministic factor to to people, right? Then you get into like that weird Minority Report world.
Really dangerous.
Yeah, and it may not be the best thing for civilization as a whole, because you're neglecting free will, and even if you broke everything down to chemical compounds, there's nothing stopping, say, me, like say I found out that you had this deterministic equation for the behaviors of all human beings, and you told me that Ayla was going to go rob a bank at this time on this day because that's what the formula said. I was like, cool. And then I slipped Ayla some LSD right in her coffee, and she just spends the whole day tripping out. Is that deterministic equation great? Like, new knowledge coming in and spread, which will always happen between people, like loose lips, sink ships, that sort of thing, but secret, like the only way you keep a secret is to keep not to tell anybody. People like to talk.
Yeah.
So there's no
And I think
complete.
this is where it turns right back into a religious argument, right? Because that would be they have like an unfalsifiable thing. Then they would say that you were destined to see that, that glimpse into the future and stop Ayla from doing the thing that she was doing, therefore redetermining the thing. It just, there is no way to falsify it. And I think that's, you know, like that's almost as magical as thinking that free will exists too. It's just you might as well think that free will exists. I mean, honestly, do you really want people to think that they're destined to do something? I don't know.
Depends on the thing.
Depends on the thing massively.
If you told me that I was destined to lead a country of people and take over the world, I'd be like, no, I don't need that. I'm all right.
Usually the people that believe they're destined for something don't necessarily do the best things in the world. Yeah, there's usually a problem with that.
There's as we speak about human intervention, I'll get into archangel intervention, visions, and how to tell, or the theory of them being around. But Ayla, you're gonna speak up.
Was I? Well, first of all, I'm not having any plans to rob a bank or do any LSD. No, thank you.
Oh, you're so boring. I want to do some LSD and then.
That's only because he said it now.
Oh yeah.
I know.
That wasn't
the
out of your own
choices we
free
make.
will.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like when you guys were talking, I was thinking a lot about like Joan of Arc, right? Because that's a situation where it could prove the existence of an angel that was giving, advice, and which is why there was so much actuation of those beliefs. But you could also argue that it was just sort of that dogged faith that propelled one into doing great things. And so, I kind of like what Nick said when he said that there's really no way to prove or disprove it. And so it's almost as arbitrary as talking about anything else. Yeah.
Or you can also go with the argument that that she had some neurochemical imbalance that caused her to have auditory hallucinations, right?
Right.
But the thing still ended in heroism, right? Is that the word I want to use? It is.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, getting to angels communicating to you. I guess we start with that thing. Usually, or from my findings, they tend to come in forms of light, flashes of light. Different color lights help, but flashes of light is the base. The only angel that seems to actually speak to humans, where you hear it as clear as day, and comes in a crisis, is the Archangel Michael. And that's the only one in my findings that I've been able to find where it's like a clear speaking voice, as if, as I'm speaking to you now. Also, I would advise. Go for it.
Sorry. Do you need to finish your thought? Because I'm kind of probably going to take it in a different direction.
I told my thought, no worries.
Yeah. I was just wondering, because you said, like the voice in your head, right? It could be something psychological, and it could be something spiritual. But it's also, if you just hear any voice, like your voice or Nick's voice or whatnot, it's kind of just weird to think about the processing of sound in a human brain, because it's waves, and then it gets kind of filtered and then processed, and there's a lot of room for error. And I think when you start talking about some of this stuff, you start to kind of, what's what's the question? Like lose a little bit of footing, which is I think is what we were talking about earlier, and just that it's hard to have the right words to talk about this stuff because so often you end up talking around it, because to talk at it or on it is going to limit you in kind of what you're trying to point out. I don't know. Nick and I had like this really long conversation about that. I mean, we were talking about like speaking in haikus, I think.
Like coded language?
No, just brevity. Ayla was being very obstinate about that metaphor that I gave her. She did not understand why I would say something like that. She thought I meant that you should rhyme when you speak to people. But that was my fault for not really explaining. But it was really just about brevity. Like the most efficient way of communication is condensing as much meaning as you can into as little words as you can.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good word choice too. Just meaning, because there's that book, Man's Search for Meaning, and I still need to read that book because I think that's going to be a good book to read. But there is this sense where we have to give meaning to things, and so that's what comes to mind when you talk about like the voices, that Joan of Arc could have heard.
Are you telling me to build grounds for this?
What?
No, you're fine. Yeah, no. Yeah, the voices that Joan of Arc could have heard. This is what do I want to say? So this is strict again. Like this goes back to the fifth dimensional things. If fifth dimensional basis, like if these things exist, right? The angels that have communicated, and it's because Archangel Michael is the one who usually represents truth and justice and kind of like the strongest of the bunch, that it communicates as a voice. All the other angels communicate through light and dreams, so does Michael. Dreams you get in really weird spaces because in theory that's the thinning of the veil. That's where so like in Islamic culture, Metatron is the angel of the veil. In dreamland and Sufi culture, that world is a different place where the veil gets kind of lifted up a little bit. But going back, the voices that could have heard could have just been psychoticism, or it could have been an angelic being. The only one that I know of, as far as archangels goes, is Michael. That's what I was all getting to. Sorry.
Got it. Yeah, and I guess I mean, just to like round that out, I wonder if faith is choosing an interpretation. I wonder if faith is simply choosing something without proof.
Yeah.
Like to even just separate it from like, the religious side of things or spiritual side of things. You can have faith in all kinds of things. And that's sort of like I like the term a Hail Mary, where it's just kind of like just put all your faith in it and just trust it and surrender. And I think that can be really useful for just the human condition, because you could have the Hamlet situation where you're just trying to find meaning and talking about and deciding like, okay, do I take this path or that path or this path? Or you can just hang your hat on something, have faith in that, and then you can move forward, which is kind of like unsatisfying because that kind of takes the magic out of it, to just say that it's just a way to plow forward and do what you got to do, like a pragmatist sort of view of faith. But
it's efficient, though.
It's efficient, yeah.
Well, what is intuition?
Oh, well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a whole episode on intuition by yours truly. You can look back.
Do we?
We do. I did one on that. But yeah, no, intuition's a tricky thing. It's multi-layered. So
is one of those layers faith?
It's your gut.
Is there not some sort of faith to get very Sam Harrisy about things? Is there not a faith parameter to your intuition equation?
Yeah.
a spark in the dark, a stroke of God talking to you. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, crazy.
Hey, Keelan, thanks for checking in on us, man.
Hi, Keelan.
Hoping you're having a great Friday.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cheers to you. I got a new wine glass.
It's a giant wine glass. Yeah. But it is probably relevant to the conversation of free will and determinism. But hence, part of the reason for the falling of the angels was the jealousy they felt about the free will that was given to humans, because angels have absolutely zero free will. They don't act without the commandment of God.
Some of them can disagree with God. As I told you the story of Adam, right? They disagree with God, and God was like, so they do have little things, but for the most part, they do have to follow the commandment. And that jealousy is big, and that plays out in human culture too, right? People are jealous of other humans all the time. You know, whether it, for the most part, I mean, it's acceptable, right? It's part of the human condition. There's nothing wrong with it. And jealousy properly used turns into will. Jealousy improperly used turns into sabotaging your fellow human, which I think gets you further away from faith, right? So, like, if I was to separate out in an Aristotelian sense, jealousy, if you're in the golden mean, you have the thing of like emulation, right? On the far end side, you have copying, where you're just you monkey see, monkey do. On the worst side, you have sabotage, and in that golden mean, you have emulation of like, why am I jealous of this person? What are they doing that I am not? And what are the deeper components of the way that they are operating? Right? Like, if I was, let's say I'm jealous of let's say I'm jealous of The Rock. I really wish my body was like The Rock's. And I see him, I don't know, lift, trucks on the side of barbells. So I go out and I go, you know what, monkey see, monkey do, I'm going to go lift up trucks on the side of barbells. That's not going to work too well for me, right? I'm not going to actually be able to pick up that barbell. And on the other side is sabotage. So let's say I don't. If The Rock was gone, then I would feel fine about who I am. So then I go out and stage an accident. Accidents happen. That doesn't do anything for me either, right? I'm still the same physical shape. But if I study like, all right, so how did he get to the point of lifting 2 trucks on a barbell? Oh, we started actually off lifting 2 vacuum weights on the floor. Then I started to lift 2 vacuum weights. You get that golden mean of emulation. So like that jealousy thing coming from the fallen angels is a useful tool, just like science and knowledge is, but you have to learn how to use it. The archangel side of things, the light side of things, is just not giving a shit about whatever.
Yeah. I think it's also though too because I think there is something distinctly different between the angels and the humans, and I think it is that the emulation, like you mean, but emulation and creation is that we're able to sort of be a small simulation of God in our own ways. We create things. Angels don't create; they just don't. And I think that also is an affront and a very big cause of jealousy. And I think that's even jealousy that we can feel towards each other as humans. If somebody's created a very good life for themselves, or they've created whatever, we have this sort of almost fallen angel inside of us that either wants to sabotage or be jealous of.
You're absolutely right. Getting back to that Christian dichotomy of the Apollonian and the Dionysian, now brought into the Michael-like and the Satan-like, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we are all simulacras of God, and there is an angel inside of all of us, and a Michael inside of all of us for the sake of this dichotomy, then you will help that simulacrum of God without question.
Mm-hmm. And you'll rejoice in its creations.
Yes.
Just like you rejoice in God's creation.
Yes, exactly. You won't, that jealousy side, because we're humans, we have both. But if we can work through it, you actually get to embody both. You get to help out that other human, that simulacrum of God, and then take the wisdom and then build your own thing because you have the free will. It's the gift that is given back through you through the intrinsic value of work and obeying that simulacrum of God. Right? And this plays out a lot in the mentor and apprentice, or the master and apprentice dichotomy, right? Like for a while as an apprentice, you're just listening to this human give you orders and do the whole thing. But then eventually you gain enough skill where you're on your own. And then you get to become the master. And then you get to teach somebody else, right? You get to be the God in their world. That's God in their world. And as long as they're an angel enough, you can pass down skills to where they ascend like Metatron. They can ascend like Metatron to become their own throne, their own God in their own little world, their own little heaven. And I think that's might be the
just Russian nesting dolls.
Yeah, beauty of the human condition, though.
Yeah.
This
Time is a flat circle. Quote Matthew McConaughey.
What the fuck is Nietzsche?
Yeah.
The little demon on your shoulder asking you
Yeah.
to do it all over again the same way, would you? No. So we talked about voices and Archangel Michael, but what I found across actually all of them, across Metatron, across Uriel, across I think it's Raphael. So I have like pages of biblical text here that I didn't want to get into, and just Abrahamic text. There are Quran's in here. There's some Torah stuff. Raphael, Gabriel, yeah. So they all communicate in light forms, in waves of light, in flashes of light, and maybe numbers too. But I didn't get into the numbers part. This is a lot of research. But they are each also kind of bound to certain colors. So let's see here. Gabriel, being a messenger, is said to be recognized by copper light. There's a few angels that can be recognized by a white light, so I assume that that's just a shared light form. And certain forbidden gospels of the Bible will describe God as just a cloud and a bunch of light. And all the angels take a certain light ray. Don't want to get into that. Not now, at least. That's a very long conversation. But Gabriel is said to be recognized by like a copper light that's due to the trumpet, due to the messenger. The trumpet plays the message. Raphael, in a sense, because Raphael is a healer, going back to the book of Tobit and all that stuff, is said to have an aura of emerald green light, to heal people. Which is kind of interesting, too, if you think about psychiatric wards and the color green being calming on a psychological level. Kind of getting back to a Jungian point of view, all of this stuff religion might have been early subconscious working its way to the consciousness. Archangel Michael is said to work within a purple light, but the purple is so bright that it comes off as blue. And so any sort of blue light rays, that sort of stuff, it tends to be not a sign that a sign that Michael could be around. Should you get a flash of light in your eyes that you're not used to. Or it could be you're going insane, one of the two. And this blue light can come when you have times of crisis. And then Uriel works within the red light. Uriel is interesting. He's kind of a badass, throws people into hell, has no pity for people at all, but is also the patron saint of the arts and is like one of wisdom. It's like you think of it like wisdom-based god sort of thing.
That reminds me of that creepy pasta. I don't know if it's actually true or not, but there was a really like famous creepy pasta that was talking about night vision in Vietnam and how the soldiers originally had red shift night vision. And the army spent a whole bunch of money on these new redshift night vision goggles, only to have to discontinue them after like a week or two because every soldier that used them reported seeing monsters flying through the sky.
Intense.
And so they had to turn it to green spectrum night vision in order to be able to have the soldiers operate at all, because apparently the red shift night vision was making them see all sorts of weird stuff flying through the air.
Imagine if they accidentally found like a mapping from like infrared to red.
Yeah.
So they're like, whoops. Let's just gonna switch that back to green and be a little blind. You don't want to see it.
Yeah, you don't need to see that.
You'll be fine. It's okay.
Right.
Meanwhile, Isaac Bentoff is like, give me those helmets and I'll come back in a year with a 2-page paper with some horrible scribbles on it.
I'll be down
It's
for
a horrible
it.
artist.
Here, give me some. Let me see. I'll go see some demons. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the lawyer from I just see the lawyer from Jurassic Park pop up. Are they heavy? If it's expensive, put it back.
Like, if they're heavy, they're expensive. Put it back.
Right.
Yeah.
And Uriel, interestingly enough, also has apparently an affinity for electricity. So, like, whenever electrical things start to get weird and you get those glitches, you can blame Uriel if you want. And is also prevalent in thunderstorms. Again, electricity. That's because being a thing of wisdom, a thing of the arts, the highest thing that you could think of us as human beings creating is the gift of electricity, all that stuff.
Also, the divine spark that comes from inspiration, being sort of the metaphorical lightning bolt.
Yes. That's not leading to great pieces of art, right? Mm. And then lastly, you have Metatron. Metatron, Nick, you could probably talk more about Metatron's cube. I'm not that educated on it. But the color spectrum that Metatron seems to work through is through pink and dark green. And what's kind of interesting about that, and has like a crystalline form of body. So you working through like pillars of light, through the cube, through sacred geometry, all that stuff. If you have like crystals when you meditate or when you pray or what have you, this is said to try to channel and bring in Metatron into your life. Who again is the human that ascended to become an angel. It's also a big healing force. All of that give you clarity of thought. Again, is a scribe, so kind of wants to work that thought thing down clean and packed. It tries to help you become the master of your thoughts instead of becoming a slave to your thoughts. I forget what movie it was. There's this movie where like this character was on death's door, had sacrificed something for like his lover. And then all of a sudden you see these rays of like pink and green lights. And then it turns out to be like some alien that saves the person. I'm really spacing out on the movie. I was probably stoned when I saw it. It's fine.
I don't know.
But pretty much saves the person from like the depths of death. They're so close to it. And
I know Alan Rickman was a good Metatron.
Yes, he was. He was like, look, I'm a eunuch. And he's like, the Book of Eden, great how loud is That's great. But whatever this movie was, we got but it's an interesting interpretation to take angels as something like aliens. But these colors were so profound within the shot. Such a beautiful shot that after reading this, it made me think of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they just released, I mean, not released, but they're just starting to talk about these UFO sightings, and particularly cubes inside of spheres. And so I wonder if there might be some correlation there, because Metatron's cube is sort of a cube inside of a sphere. And, it's just laid out in a 2-dimensional framework. It's actually a star inside of a cube, inside of a sphere, inside of another star.
You could take you could take that interpretation of Metatron ascending to the angels as aliens picked a human for whatever reason to share knowledge with. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to take it down like a weird sci-fi, or not a weird, but like a sci-fi road, you take it as that too. Mm-hmm. And it becomes really interesting where, like, there might be certain amounts of wisdom or information that if you just gave it to the common human, then you end up with the whole Azazel thing, right? Like, we taught humans how to wage war instead of protecting themselves. They decided to take the land over for the bananas over there or something.
Yeah.
But then there you find this one human who's like, oh, yeah, this is some pretty cool knowledge. Can you teach me some more? And they're like, you're not going to use it or anything? Or that, yeah, I'm just going to write down everything that happens. I'm going to watch everything, observe. You're like us. Come on up. And then the Metatron cube thing is taught.
Mm-hmm.
So is that possible?
Or Metatron was taken into the cube and taken out, away from Earth. Yeah, that's the kind of the way I see it. If there are these ships that are cubes inside of circles, then maybe that's what Metatron was taken up in.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be down for that. You'd be down for. Oh, you had that dream though, right?
I've had a few. Which one? Which one? I've had many dreams about weird shit like that. I mean, I've definitely had angel dreams. Yeah.
I remember which dream it was. It was the one where you were abducted and there was like something that you wanted to touch and they were like, don't touch that.
Oh, that was the plasma. yeah. But that was like the super resonant plasma that was like moving to my thoughts. But I think also there was one I dreamt of, but I don't think there was anything about a cube or a sphere. So except for me, there was they were training me in telekinesis, and I had to move a metal ball.
Dude, your dreams are so cool. I just get like these horror dreams.
Yeah, mine are not as violent as yours. That's for sure.
Oh my god. I woke him up at like 3 a.m. the other week, where I was just like, it happened again.
Like some Donnie Darko stuff. Like, yeah, they made me do it. I'm sorry. Our neighbor's dead. Can you hide the body?
Oh God, no. It was just a very vivid. I'll tell you after the show. It's crazy.
Okay, I'm down to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dreams have been. They've been all over the place, but they tend to be. Some of them tend to be grounded, and then like I've had one or two that were like proper biblical. Like while I was doing this research, I had a dream that I was following a giant angel through the clouds, like probably Michael and Satan. Maybe I'm just a narcissist. Michael and Satan like fighting, and it was like they were flying towards the earth, and I was like behind them, and there's just keeping like a camera angle on them or something as they fell through clouds and stuff. It was a bizarre dream. I've never had anything like that. I woke up like terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Like not like terror, not like afraid of the thing I saw, but like in awe and scared. It's a weird emotion. Like it was like I was happy to be scared.
Interesting. Like exhilarated.
Yeah, I guess so a little bit. But I was like, well, yeah, like that like a good version of a gut punch, or a good version of a pucker moment, to say it in a family friendly way.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Or like Indiana Jones, when like something almost gets him and he risks his life for his hat and everything works out and he puts his hat on and he's like, yeah, got my hat. Yeah.
But it was like a perpetual like reaching for the hat. There was no like I pulled it out and put it on my head until like 30 minutes after I woke up, where I was like, yeah, that happened. That was a thing. That was a thing that's ago.
Nice.
But yeah, that's all I got. Like, so without starting to read religious texts,
Without becoming a theologian.
Yeah.
I think I'm on my way, man. I think it's going to become a hobby of mine.
That's cool. It's not a bad hobby.
It's not.
Interesting one.
It is, and there's this really interesting show I mentioned before, and I believe the name is Ancient Apocalypse. Is that it? Yeah, it's like a Netflix documentary, and he's just
came out
talking.
today.
It just came out today. Yeah, first episode's about the floods and archaeological evidence to provide some sort of narrative around what that could have, like, it could have been a real flood, and it just gets really interesting to think about that, because I was telling Nick, like, dang, if that did happen, and because they point out that there's flood mythology across cultures, across continents. And I was watching it and I told Nick, like, damn, humans don't let shit go, do they? Like, over and over and over for eons and all
If the
this
world
stuff.
ended, you would want to make sure that story got told forever.
Right. I mean, like, I think it aligns with the bottleneck theories that have been out there. So it is just really interesting to think about how humans as a group, tell stories, and what we talk about, and how often trauma gets like meaning, through these mythologies and these characters. And I don't know.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I could see how you would want to be a theologian. It's good stuff.
You know, another one thing that made me angry during this research, but makes sense.
What?
The Earth is just a proxy war for God and the devil.
Yeah.
I can see that.
It really is. They
and then we have
made a deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I liked that Nick pointed out this sort of like jealousy over the free will that we have that they don't. And I do think that over here in like the 21st century with all of our knickknacks, we can be like, oh, determinism, we have no free will. But like, there is a point when all this stuff came out where they said, we're going to have this story, and these people didn't have it, but we do. And we got to figure out how to deal with that, how to cope with it. And here we go, Then again, you think about ancient peoples. I think we have to have a little more humility when we consider what they went through and what led them to sort of generate the stories that they did.
Most definitely. And have a bit more respect for the ones that defend their free will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that is a great way to end this evening. Thank you to all of our veterans out there. We very much appreciate all of you. Happy Veterans Day. And our service members currently active as well. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Yes, absolutely. And thanks to Big Mike. Deep thoughts. We try. And thanks to Keelan again. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you. We love you guys. And we're always appreciative when you come hang out with us. We hope that you enjoyed. Certainly enjoyed this episode. Thanks to Mike for curating this conversation. We appreciate you, Mike. And it's been a good one, guys.
Too much of a mess.
No, it's fun.
No, thoughtful.
Interesting concepts as always. And we hope that you guys out there enjoyed as well. Please leave us a thumbs up. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Who's your favorite archangel? That would be great. We'd very much appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up, subscription, all of that good stuff. We are just trying to build out our audience here on Facebook, and we can't do it without your help. So please feel free to help us out on that level. Stay tuned for next week. We will be doing, I guess I could drop it, a hint now. We will be doing a conversation about the Great Fungus Conspiracy. This one,
plant power.
This one might destroy my life. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know if my fungus overlords will allow me to speak about that.
Yeah, I don't know if they will, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try to maybe broach the subject that nobody wants to really ever talk about.
There's determinism, and then there's puppet master
and
shit.
Then there's fungal overlords, and we'll be talking about that. So
Fungal. Oh,
yeah,
That's great.
the fungal feudalists.
yes.
Fungal fascists. No, I don't know.
Pretty much.
Oh.
But in preparation for that episode, you should check out the plant power episode, also created by yours truly. It's a good one, and it'll help lay some terminology or background to this foreboding fungus future we have ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we're going deeper than the black pill here. We are going the mushroom pill, and hope you guys are ready for that. So next week,
Nice.
8 p.m. Again, thank you to Mike for this conversation. Thank you to all of you out there for checking us out tonight. Go over to Thinkering Talks on Facebook and check out all the other podcasts we do with our friends in our network. You'll get a podcast every day. You can go see them at Thinkering Talks on Facebook. And each channel has their own YouTube page and Facebook and Spotify. And this channel's got Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and Audible right now. So go check us out there. And yeah, thanks again, you guys. We really appreciate it. Until next time, Cogmonauts, stay out there, and we'll catch you on the next Exofathom. Good night.
Peace.
Later.